amendments are very important to our political life. It benefits the country and also our people. In a new era for the development of socialism with Chinese characteristics, constitutional amendments represent important progress in our legal development. It is also a very important product of the first session of the 13th National People's Congress, which is the first item on the agenda. So it's a very important occasion, which is reason for celebration. I congratulate every one of us who is involved in this process. This time around, the constitutional amendments are made in strict accordance with legal procedures. Let me briefly touch upon the issues discussed and deliberated at today's meeting. On March the 5th, the meeting listened to the report of Wang Chen, Deputy Chairman of the National People's Congress Standing Committee, on behalf of the 12th National People's Congress Standing Committee. He explained the details about the constitutional amendments based on a program of the two sessions. On March the 7th, in both morning and the afternoon, different delegations convened plenary sessions and breakout sessions, deliberating the constitutional amendments draft. Altogether, over 2,400 deputies attended the plenary session and the breakout sessions and raised their proposals and suggestions. On March the 8th in the afternoon, at the plenary session of the Presidium of the National People's Congress Standing Committee, we listened to the report of the Secretariat on the draft amendments of the Constitution. A report of the Presidium on the constitutional amendments were presented. On March the 9th, in the morning session, different delegations deliberated the draft of the constitutional amendments. On March the 10th, in the afternoon session, the Presidium, the chairperson, and also other participants convened a very important meeting, listening to the report of the Secretariat on the explanations on the draft amendments to the Constitution. And important suggestions were also raised at the meeting, and the decisions were put to the deliberation of the delegations. In the morning of today, March the 11th, the delegations, based on the deliberations of different delegations, submitted the deliberations to voting. And this afternoon, you may have seen that the draft amendments have been adopted and widely reported, and it has been made in strict accordance with laws, and over 200 people have been involved in supervising the voting process. And it is an anonymous voting procedure, and every deputy has a ballot to cast in this process, and they can vote in favor or against, or they can also abstain from the voting process, and it is done in strict accordance with legal procedures. As a result, the constitutional amendments, according to voting, won a landslide approval, As a deputy of the 13th National People's Congress and also a member of the Secretariat, I'm very gratified and happy with this result.
那么这次宪法修改的
This time around, in the constitutional amendments, the principal purpose of making this amendment
就是要把党的
is
十
to
大确定的重大理
write
论观
the
点，
important philosophies and concepts of the 19th CPC Congress into the Constitution. Especially, Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. And it has been written into the fundamental law of China. That demonstrates
新成就、
the new results, new progress, new experience,
新要求，
new requirements
在总体保
of
持
our socioeconomic development.
宪法的连续性、
In maintaining the continuity, stability,
权威性的
and
基础上，
authority of the Constitution,
推动宪法
we continue to
与时俱
promote
进，
the progress of the Constitution and improvement of the Constitution in line with the
那么刚刚
times.
通过的宪法修正
The
案
just adopted constitutional
共有
amendments
21条。
include altogether 21 articles,
那么主要内容呢有这么
and they mainly cover the following areas.
一个呢是
First,
确立了科学发展观，
it has established the scientific outlook on development, Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese
在国
characteristics
家
for a
政
new
治
era
和社会生活
as
中
a
的
very
指
important
导地位，
guideline for our social and
实
political
现
life,
指导思想的与时俱进。
and they represent the new results of our guiding principles.
是
Secondly,
调整
we
完善了
revised and improved
中国特色社会主义事业总体布局，
the overall structure and deployment for socialism with Chinese characteristics, and also the objectives for the second centennial goal of our country's
第
development.
三呢是
Thirdly,
完善全
we
体法治国
improved the
和宪法
law-based
实施
governance and the implementation of the Constitution and relevant provisions and
第
articles.
四呢
Fourthly,
是调整充实
we enriched and
我国革命
substantiated
和
and
建
revised
设发展历程的
the
内容，
contents relating to the revolution and construction and development of our country. Fifth,
完善了
we revised and improved
广泛的爱国统一战线
the united front with
民主
patriotism
关系
at the core and also the relations with democratic
第六
parties.
呢
Sixth,
是调整完善
we revised and improved
和平外交
the
政策
articles relating to peaceful foreign relations
对外工作方面的大政方针。
and major arrangements for foreign relations.
这个国外的朋友们，中国在宪法
I
上
have
明
seen
确
some
地
foreign journalists here
讲到
present at this
在这次修宪
press
中明
conference,
确
and
地
they
讲到坚
mentioned,
持和平发展道路，
and in the amendments, it was proposed that we will uphold peaceful development, mutually beneficial strategy of opening up, and promote the building of a community with shared future for mankind. So this is the sixth revision.
是
Seventh,
充实、坚
we
持和
substantiated
加强中国共产党
and
全面领导
strengthened the leadership of the
的有关内容。
Communist Party of China and relevant provisions.
那么第八呢，
Eighth,
是增加
we
国家倡导社会主义核心价值观
added
方面的。
core socialist values and relevant contents into the Constitution.
那么第九呢，
Ninth,
是修改完善
we revised and improved
任职任
the
期
provisions
方面的规定
relating to the term of office of Chinese president and vice president.
第十呢，是在
Tenth,
宪法中
in the
增加
Constitution, we
有关社
added
区的市的地方立法权。
the legislative power for more cities with subsidiary districts.
是适应
Tenth,
深化国家监察体制改革
we continue to
这样
deepen
的一个发展要求，
deepen supervisory commissions in response to the new developments in our country and relevant provisions and articles.
增加呢与
which means we will add relevant provisions relating to supervisory commissions. And there are quite a number of articles and also a section devoted to supervisory commissions. And in 11 points, in 10 articles, relevant provisions were provided for regarding supervisory commissions. Lastly, we also revised and improved the provisions regarding special committees of the National People's Congress Standing Committee. We believe that constitutional amendments and the adoption of the draft amendments to the Constitution will be bound to promote and safeguard the development of the party and the country and contribute significantly to reinforcing the legal development of our country. So this is pretty much what I would like to say in the opening remarks. Now I would like to give my mic to my colleagues.
Now the floor is open to questions.
中区第3排这位男士。
谢谢主持人，我是人民日报的记者。刚刚审议通过的宪法修正案明确了习近平新时代中国特色社会主义思想在国家政治和社会生活中的指导地位。请问我们该如何理解把中国共产党的这一指导思想载入国家根本法？它具有什么样的现实意义和历史意义？谢谢。
I'm with People's Daily. The just adopted amendment to the Constitution has established the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era as one of the guidelines for the country's political and social life. So what is the relevance and historical significance of incorporating the CPC's guiding thought into the basic law of the state?
这次修改宪法的这个一个重要的内容呢，就是把习近平新时代中国特色社会主义思想载入国家根本法。
To write the Xi Jinping thoughts on social and Chinese characteristics for new era into the country's fundamental law. It's a common wish of the party members as well as the Chinese people. Since the 18th CPC National Congress, the Central Party Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, continue to strengthen the work of building socialism with Chinese characteristics and ushered in a new era for a development for the new era and forming a series of new concepts, new thoughts, and new strategies in governing the country. During the 19th CPC National Congress has established the Central Party Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core and have concluded all of these theories and thoughts and has been written into the party charter. The guiding principle of the party has been updated in a timely fashion. One of the features of China's constitution is that it clearly stipulated that the guiding thoughts of the country's governance is clearly stipulated, and it's clearly said that it's Marxism-Leninism, the Mao Zedong thought, and Deng Xiaoping theory. And 3 represents. That is before this constitutional amendment. This time we also added the scientific outlook on development and Xi Jinping thoughts on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. Indeed, Xi Jinping thoughts on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era is a new, latest result of Marxism with Chinese characteristics, and it's a combination of the CPC's wisdom and our practices. And since the 18th CPC National Congress, we've made historical breakthroughs both in the party as well as in the country, and historical breakthroughs have been witnessed. And its political significance, theoretical significance, and practical significance reached wide and high consensus both in the party and in the entire country as a whole. Therefore, to establish this Xi Jinping thoughts on socialism with Chinese characteristic for new era as a guiding thought. It demonstrated the features of the Constitution, and it's also an important experiences of the development of constitutions. If you're familiarized with the constitutions, we made several amendments, and there are similar amendments in the past times. There is very rich content to Xi Jinping thoughts on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. While in the 19th CPC Congress, there is a more systematic description, and it clearly stipulated our major missions of building a moderately prosperous society and the two-step objectives of building China into a strong country that is beautiful, strong, and democratic and environmentally friendly. So our major contradiction is the ever-growing demand of a better life and an imbalanced development within the country. So we need to be more people-oriented and promote full-fledged development of the people in order to reach common prosperity. It also has clear provision of the four fronts, and to strengthen confidence in its path, system, institution, and culture, and theories. And the goal of deepening reform is to optimize the governing system and modernization of governing, and promote the rule of law, and build a legislative system with Chinese socialism. The aim of military building is to build a army that is world first class and listen to the command of the party. The aim of building the diplomacy of China is to build a community with shared future for mankind, and this clearly stipulated the leadership of the CPC is the most fundamental feature of socialism with Chinese characteristics, as well as the advantages of socialism with Chinese characteristics. It also pinpoints the requirement for a new time, and political building has now a central position in China's political life. If you are familiarized with Xi Jinping's thoughts on socialism with the Chinese characteristics for a new era, you may see that it is demonstrated and depicted in various parts of the amendment.
谢谢，请
Thank
继
you.
续提问。右区第5排那位女士。
好，谢谢主持人，我是中央人民广播电台和央广网的记者。 那宪法修正案呢，是在第1章的总纲的第1条当中呢，增加了中国共产党领导是中国特色社会主义最本质的特征。那我注意到，在现行的宪法当中呢，只是在序言部分有中国共产党，还有中国共产党领导这样的表述。那请问这次为什么要在正文当中增加相关的规定呢？谢谢。
I'm with China National Radio. In the amendment to the Constitution, a new sentence is added to Article 1 of the Constitution's first chapter, General Principles, which reads, "The leadership of the Communist Party of China is the defining feature of socialism with Chinese characteristics." And we have noticed that in the previous edition of the Constitution, phrases of Communist Party of China and the leadership of the CPC only appeared in the preamble. So why this time new provisions have been adopted to make reference to CPC and the CPC leadership in the main body of the Constitution?
中国共产党的领导
The CPC leadership is the choice of the history and our people. The CPC leaders have on many occasions systematically and comprehensively elaborated on this point. This time in the constitutional amendments, as you mentioned just now, many people have also taken note of this particular fact. In the articles of the Constitution and also the general provisions of the first article, we added the following sentence. The leadership of the CPC is the defining feature of socialism with Chinese characteristics. As you mentioned in your question, in a previous edition, in the Constitution, the CPC leadership is clearly stipulated, and this remains consistent this time around, but it was written in the preamble of the Constitution of the previous edition. The key feature of Chinese Constitution is that it has a very important section that is the preamble of the Constitution, and it has altogether 13 paragraphs. Writing CPC leadership into the preamble, and also it has been mentioned 5 times in the preamble, and it is a very clear wording. Well, there is no problem with the effectiveness and validity of the preamble. So this is the first point I would like to emphasize. In addition, why do we write this sentence into the first article of the Constitution that reads, "The leadership of the Communist Party of China is the defining feature of socialism with Chinese characteristics"? I think on top of the previous edition, this reinforces and expands the definition, and it has significance on the following 3 fronts. First, it fully demonstrates the ultimate leadership of the CPC. If you read closely the first article of the Constitution, it has provisions about the fundamental system of the country, that is the political system based on workers' democratic dictatorship and alliance between workers and farmers. So this is written into the first part of the Article 1. Socialism is the defining system of Chinese country, and it is also written into the article. The revision this time demonstrates the ultimate authority and leadership of the CPC.
体现了
Secondly, it testifies to the comprehensive leadership of the CPC.
第一条具有统领的
The first article of the Constitution is an overarching and general article concerning the fundamental system and political institutions of the country. So the CPC leadership is manifested in every part of our daily life. In the 19th Party Congress, General Secretary Xi Jinping mentioned a very important sentence, that is, the CPC has the ultimate leadership over all aspects of our political and social life, which means we have to follow the comprehensive leadership of the CPC. Thirdly, it reflects the fact that the CPC is progressing with the times. The CPC leadership is the defining feature of socialism with Chinese characteristics. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that changing the CPC leadership from the preamble into the main body of the Constitution demonstrates the fact that socialism with Chinese characteristics has been for the first time written into the Constitution. In the Constitution, there are many provisions about socialism, but the defining feature is the leadership of the CPC, and that speaks to the progress of the CPC in step with the times, and it reinforces, deepens, and expands the significance of the CPC leadership, and it has special political and legal relevance and significance. Well, in your question, you mentioned a word that needs to be clarified. The CPC leadership is written for the first time into the main body of the Constitution, but to me, the preamble is also the main body of the Constitution, and the articles are naturally the main body of the Constitution. So in legal vernacular, we would treat all these into the main body, and we have different chapters and sections concerning the fundamental political systems of the country. So this revision is a very important part of this amendment, and it demonstrates the ultimate comprehensive and progress of the CPC leadership. Thank you.
西区后面的那位外国记者，举手的那位。
你好，我是美国全国公共广播电台的记者。有一种观点认为，中国共产党要活动在法律的框架之内，因此呢，党章要服从于宪法，因此呢，不是总统的任期制要从那个宪法拿出来，而是党的总书记的任期限制应该写进党章。你对这种评论有什么评论？I'm with National Public Radio, and I think your translator is doing a lovely job. But as I'm a bit picky about my words, I'm going to translate that myself. And I'm talking about a particular criticism which says that the party, by its own admission, must operate within the confines of Chinese law. And that means that the Constitution is superior to the party's charter. And therefore, it's not presidential term limits which should be erased from the Constitution, but instead limits on the term of the party's general secretary, which should be written into the party's charter. How do you respond to that argument? Thank you.
他自己翻译一遍，就是中英文是一样的。
他的英文更好一些，中文呢我听得模糊一点。对不起啊，我 努力理解吧。你刚才的中文这个问题啊，党的18大以来呢，习近平总书记、党中央多次的强调。
After the 18th National Congress of the CPC, reinstated that we need to rule the country according to the Constitution and the ruling according to the based of according to the law. But the Constitution, in promoting the rule of law, has a irreplaceable function and position. Since reform and opening up, and we enter into a new historical period, this fact is deeply felt by all the Chinese people. The Central Party Committee has stressed on many occasions one fundamental stand of us, that is, the party leads the people to make the constitution, including making amendment to the constitution. The party leads the people to implement and execute the constitution. And the party itself need to act within the confine of the Constitution. This is not only mentioned today, it has already been written into the party charter. I mean, the latest amendment during the 19th CPC National Congress. This principle, the party have to act within the confinement of the Constitution, is written in 35 years ago during the 12th CPC National Congress. That is 35 years ago. So whether it's constitution or law, the CPC and organization of all levels and governing organs, as well as leaders and staff at all levels, have to follow this important principle and safeguard this principle. And after the 18th CPC National Congress, in protecting the authority of the Constitution, we've adopted many important measures. After the approval of the draft amendment, in the report of Comrade Zhang Dejiang of the work of the Standing Committee, he also mentioned this important content. And a big part of this work of the Standing Committee is about the implementation of the Constitution. In 2014, for example, we have established 4 days, identified 4 days as National Constitution Day. There's also a oath of allegiance, which is according to the proposal of 2015 NPC Standing Committee, proposing that all state functionaries shall take public oath of allegiance to the Constitution when assuming office. It has been included in the latest constitutional amendment. Our spokesperson of the session also mentioned that one of the major items on the agenda is to elect the new cabinet and party leadership. One important stipulation is that when the officials assume office, they have to pledge allegiance to the Constitution. Right here at the Great Hall of the People.
以往是不曾有过的。
This is an entirely new stipulation for us to have a pledging of allegiance to the Constitution here in the Great Hall of the People. These are major issues in our legislative and legal life. And they are of great significance. There were in the past corruption when it comes to election or in Liaoning province.
70周年实行特赦也是直接实施宪法国歌法国家
and also
号法这跟
the
宪法
law
实施直接有关的法律
on
制
the national anthem and other relevant laws have been constantly established. So according to the Constitution,
很好地处理了
we've handled many major issues
问题
in our political life
也积累了新的实践
and
经验
accumulated new practical
所以在党的
experiences.
领导下
Under the party leadership, we need to stick to the rule of law and the rule according to the Constitution.
中国共产党依法执政依宪执政
And the ruling and governing according to the law and Constitution, there are no
那么我
contradictions
们在不断地用新的实践
or questions to it. And we are enriching and interpreting
依法治
the rule of law and rule of Constitution
如果您
with
注意到
practical
我今天刚
experiences.
看了一下报纸不知道朋友们大家看没看昨天呐
According to,
习近平总书
I
记
read a piece of news on yesterday's
参加
newspaper,
重庆团队
according to which
审议
General Secretary Xi Jinping participated in the discussion of the Chongqing delegates, giving important comments
我注意到就有这样总书记
and opinions. General Secretary Xi Jinping, according to the report,
各级领导干部当然包括党的领导干部国家的各级领
when
导干部
speaking to leaders
提
of
出了
all
明确的要求
levels, give
坚持法治
clear requirements, stick to the rule of law,
反对人治
and is against the rule of individual persons.
对宪法和法律始终保持敬畏之
We
心
need to stay all to the laws and the constitutions and play a leading role of act within the confinement of the Constitution. These are quite clear
用以下呢来回应
words that is made by General Secretary Xi Jinping in his speech.
我就先到这里
And that would be my answer
谢
to
谢
your
请
question.
继续提问。中区第4排的靠过道的那位男士，这边，你是左手边。
好，谢谢主持人，我是中央电视台、央视网、央视新闻移动网的记者。我们发现这次宪法的修改所占篇幅最大的内容就是宪法的第3章，国家机构中新增了监察委员会，这一节。那么也对其余的10条都进行了相应的修改。那么我想问的是，这样的修改对于我们国家反腐败工作有着怎样的意义？谢谢。
I'm with CCTV. We've noticed that the most substantial revision to the Constitution this time is in Chapter 3, the structure of the state. A new section titled the Supervisory Commission has been inserted, and also corresponding revisions have been made to the other 10 articles. So what is the significance of the revision to anti-corruption work?
好，这个问题由我来回答。
So I would like to take your question, and Mr. Shen would take a few minutes of break. Thank you for your question, and thank you for taking note of the revisions to the articles relating to supervisory commissions. There are quite a number of articles being revised. This time around, the CPC Central Committee decided to revise the constitutions, mainly to deepen the supervisory mechanisms and institutions. Just now you mentioned that in 21 amendments, a total of 11 amendments relate to the supervisory mechanisms and commissions. in 11 points of the 10 articles in the Constitution, and also in the chapter titled The Structure of the State, a part entitled Supervisory Commissions is inserted. So that occupies a significant part of the amendments to the Constitution this time. And that demonstrates the significance of the Supervisory Commission. Deepening supervisory mechanisms is a very comprehensive and significant decision by the CPC Central Committee. The goal of the reform is to integrate the anti-graft resources and capabilities and strengthen the united and centralized leadership of the CPC over anti-graft campaigns and establish efficient supervisory mechanisms at the national level. And a very important task is to establish supervisory commissions. Establishing supervisory commissions concerns the revision and adaptation and adjustments of the state functionaries at the top level. And that's why we have to make the relevant stipulations and amendments to the constitutions. The organization, composition, and also the functions and powers of the supervisory commissions and its relationship with other state bodies are clearly stipulated into the constitutions. Let me briefly touch upon the main revisions. Regarding the establishment of the supervisory commissions, in Article 3 of the Constitution, we added the sentence that the supervisory commissions will be created by the National People's Congress and will be put under the oversight of the National People's Congress. Second, regarding the appointment and removal of the supervisory commission members, in Article 26, we added the sentence that electing the director of the supervisory commissions in other articles, we also added provisions regarding the appointment of the deputy directors and members of the supervisory commission. So these are the appointments and removal of the directors and deputy directors. We also added the article regarding the terms of office of the directors and deputy directors of the Supervisory Commission. The term of office will be the same as the People's Congress of the same level, and they will serve no more than 2 consecutive terms. In terms of the leadership institutions and arrangements, the National Supervisory Commission will be the highest body of supervision, and it will be responsible for leading the lower supervisory commissions, and the lower supervisory commissions will answer to the supervisory commissions at the upper level. Regarding the relationship between the supervisory commissions and other state bodies, we provided for the fact that in dealing with corruption and occupational and professional crimes, the supervisory commissions have to work with other state bodies under checks and balances and other mechanisms. The provisions of the supervisory commissions and relevant institutions have provided constitutional foundation for the exercise of powers by the supervisory commissions. You know that according to the program, we also have the review of the supervisory law and regulations. So these provisions will continue to promote the establishment of a clean government and the undertaking of anti-graft and corruption campaigns. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。西区第三排这位女士，第三排。
感谢主持人，我是新京报的记者。关于 国家主席、副主席任职规定的修改呢，是这次宪法修改引人关注的一个地方。我们想了解一下呢，就是删去国家主席、副主席连续任职不得超过2届的规定，是有怎么样的考虑？今后，国家机关的其他国家领导人员有没有类似的修改考虑？谢谢。
With the Beijing news, the revision to the term of office of the president and the vice president is one of the parts that has drawn most attention in the constitutional revision this time. So what are the considerations behind deleting the provision that the president and the vice president of the PRC shall serve no more than 2 consecutive terms? Will there be similar revisions to other leadership positions of state organs in the future?
这次宪法修正案的一个重要内容呢，就是对现行宪法的第79条第3款的规定呢，做出
amendment to the third clause of the 79th article.
The
previous stipulation said that the term office of the President and Vice President of the People's Republic of China is the same as that of the National People's Congress. And that they shall serve no more than 2 consecutive terms. According to the latest amendment, the second sentence was removed. That is, the removal of the "they shall serve no more than 2 consecutive terms." It includes important consideration and is highly significant. According to Mr. Wang Chen's interpretation of the amendment draft, he has made clear explanation that, especially about the removal of term limit for president and vice president. Both in and out of the party and across the entire country, there had been opinions, especially during the forming of the 19th CPC National Congress report. There are opinions, widespread opinions, that in the party's charter, there are stipulations about the terms of the General Secretary of the CPC, and there are also stipulations about terms of the Central Military Committee. But in the Constitution, there are about the term limit of the military, military commission or the there is no stipulation about the term limit about of the military commission in the Constitution. Therefore, there are party members and comrades propose that the Constitution should have this same stipulation. The highest leader of the party central committee, the highest leader of the military commission, and the highest leader of the country, that is the president, should have the same stipulation on their term limits. For CPC, which is a big party leading a big country, it is not only necessary but most appropriate. This kind of leading structure is an important conclusion and discovery through long terms of governance and ruling of the country, and this is considered a successful experiences of the past. If you look back at the history of China, more than 68 years.
关于党和国家领导体制有不同的
There are many different stipulations
那么最近
when it comes to the leading force of the country, but in the recent 20 years, especially after the year 1993,
三位一体的体制是一个成功的、有效的。
this political system has been proven effective. Therefore, this amendment to the Article 98 and Clause 3 aims at optimizing the leading structure of the country, and this amendment will help safeguarding the authority of Central Party Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core. It can also optimize the leading system of the party and the country, and it is beneficial to the stability and safety of the entire country. Therefore, this particular content in the amendment has raised public attention. I believe that it's quite reasonable, and this important amendment needs to be fully understood. And to understand, correctly understand the significance of the removal of term limits for president and vice president.
东区第三排那位男士。
谢谢主持人。中国国际广播电台记者提问。那么就是我们注意到，这次宪法修正案第40条对宪法宣誓做出了相关的规定，而此前全国人大常委会是已经就此做出了相关的决定。在这种情况下，为什么这次宪法还要增加有关宪法宣誓的这样一个内容呢？谢谢。
I'm with China Radio International. Article 40 of the amendment to the Constitution has introduced a new paragraph regarding the oath of allegiance to the Constitution. But actually before that, the MPC Standing Committee had already issued a decision on the constitutional oath. So why still including this provision in the constitutional amendment?
Implementing the oath of allegiance to the Constitution is the very important decision of the fourth plenary session of the 18th National People's Congress Standing Committee that aims to promote the awareness of the general public in observing and implementing the Constitution. And by doing so, we can make sure that the authority of the Constitution can be respected. And the fourth plenum of the 18th CPC Central Committee, that was raised as a very important decision. In 2015, the National People's Congress Standing Committee, through legal procedure, made it into the law as a very important decision. Over the past 2 years, state organs at different levels and the state functionaries of different agencies have had taken a public oath of allegiance to the Constitution when assuming office, including the state staff elected by the National People's Congress Standing Committee, and also the staff of the State Council, the Supreme People's Court and Supreme People's Procuratorate. And the National People's Congress Standing Committee has also implemented the oath of allegiance to the Constitution starting from January the 1st, 2016. Altogether, we hosted 12 sessions of pledging allegiance involving 45 people, and this is a very meaningful work. Last year, when elected as the director of the Legislative Affairs Commission of the MPC Standing Committee, I also took a public oath of allegiance, and I was very proud
人民代表大会13届全国人大1次会议
At the first session of the 13th National People's Congress, there is on the agenda item that is taking a public oath of allegiance to the Constitution at the National People's Congress sessions. And the Central Committee of the CPC and the central government takes this very seriously, and relevant agencies have been following this over the years. Madam Chen also mentioned that the supervisory commissions, when piloted in different localities, have also implemented the taking of public oath of allegiance to the Constitution when electing the relevant members of the commissions. In Article 27, we added a paragraph on this particular topic, which aims to reinforce and elevate the significance of the oath of allegiance. And that also has to do with the significance of the Constitution as a very fundamental piece of law. So for the highest state leaders and officials at different levels, when assuming office, they all have to, in accordance with the law, take a public oath of allegiance to the Constitution. Not long ago, the NPC Standing Committee chairman and the relevant members revised the relevant provisions. The oath is a very sacred part of taking office, and that represents the commitments and promise to our people. So we revised the oath in order to keep up with the times. At the 19th Party Congress, we proposed the new goals for our country, and the constitutional amendments also incorporated the new goals, that is to build our country into a prosperous, democratic, civilized, harmonious and beautiful country with modern systems and socialism with Chinese characteristics. A modern socialist country that is prosperous and strong is the aspiration and dream of every one of Chinese people. We have been striving towards this goal for a long time, and we have embarked on a long journey. Today, we are getting closer to achieving this goal. General Secretary Xi Jinping mentioned the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation is a very important goal, and we are more closer to this goal than ever, and we revised the oath in this particular context. And that's why we reinforced and expanded the relevant provisions regarding the oath of allegiance in this particular context. And I believe that this will contribute to the implementation of the Constitution, and in carrying forward the spirit of the constitutional spirit, constitution, and also in promoting the implementation of the constitutional provisions. We have numerous officials at different levels, and they will take the public oath of allegiance to the Constitution when assuming office. Thank you.
中区第4排那位外国记者。
Thank you. With Reuters, there's been a lot of criticism of this decision to scrap the term limits. A lot of fears about the possibility of a return to one-man rule. Some people even worry that political struggle within China might return to the period of the Cultural Revolution, or that when Xi does eventually decide to step down, there's going to be a power struggle. How can you say that these sorts of issues won't arise? Thank you.
你好，我是路透社的记者。那么对于这次修宪当中呢，关于领导人任期限制的取消，也有一些不同的意见。他们认为呢，这会导致强势的领导的出现，而且会使得中国再次出现过去曾经经历过的政治动荡，而且在领导人换届的时候呢，也会可能出现一些权力斗争。那么如果这些现象出现的话，应当如何应对？
就是还是关于79条第3 款的规定啊，因为我觉得刚才我
still a question about Article 79 and Clause 3. It is an important measure for prioritizing the leading structure. There's an coordinates between the party, the military, and the country. It is true to our national reality, and is also experiences draw from practices and explorations, both in and out of the party and across the entire country. We have reached a high level of consensus.
可能有好多记者、媒体朋友们，第一天的3月5号，3月5号的那天开幕会，除了总理做报告以外
I don't know if you listen to Mr. Wang Chen's interpretation report on the amendment draft to their constitution. Legal interpretation
就是不会这个有什么波澜和这个比较平稳吧。
is more than often just
在讲到这个问题的时候，现场响起了2次的掌声，除了那个
a regular interpretation, but when talking about this issue, there were 2 applauses.
大家可以想一想。
Giving to
有没有广泛的、坚实的政治基础
amendment draft? So without clear political support from the society and support of the current legal system, this will not happen. Therefore, I don't think there is a problem or a question to this amendment draft. Your speculations actually have no base of existence.
习近平总书记在19届中央政治局常委
According to General Xi Jinping's
第一次从中外媒体见面会上
speech,
讲过这样的话。
He mentioned once that
实践充分证明
practical experiences have shown that the CPC has the ability to lead the social revolution
这个领导全党
and
进行伟大的
lead the people to go through a self-revolution. Which party in the world can claim that they are able to conduct a self-revolution?
我希望呢，能够关注到。
I want to draw your attention to these 2 important revolutions. The CPC was established 90 years ago. We've encountered numberless, countless obstacles, addressed major issues,
这其中就包括
and conundrums. And
一系列的
they
问题，
include
其中就包括党和国家各级领导层实现有序更替和保持党
and
和国家
healthy rotation of leadership at all levels in order to maintain vitality and stability of the
改革开
country.
放近40年来，
After 40 years of reform and opening up, we have successfully expanded and ushered in a new path for socialism with Chinese characteristics.
所以今后呢，我们也一定能
We
够沿
believe
着这条道
that in
路
the future we'll continue with this path
越走越宽广，
and to expand this
越来越光
path
明。
and to discover even brighter future. And our objectives is still to be realized. I do think that your speculation is ungrounded
谢谢，
and
请继续提问。
without a base.
中区第6排的第2位那位女士来。
谢谢主持人。封面新闻记者提问：我们注意到 新通过的宪法修正案和之前的草案相比，新增加了一个内容，那就是将全国人大法律委员会更名为全国人大宪法和法律委员会。所以想请问，首先这一修改是出于什么样的考虑？中国有建宪法法院或其他专门的宪法审查机构的打算吗？全国人大如何推进合宪性审查？谢谢。
I'm with the cover. We have noticed that compared to the draft amendment, there's one further revision in the newly adopted amendment, that is, the MPC Law Committee has been renamed into the MPC Constitution and Law Committee. So what is the purpose of this revision? Does China have any plan to set up a constitutional court or other constitutional review bodies? What will the MPC do to advance constitutionality review?
As you mentioned in the question, very specifically, at the first session of the 13th National People's Congress Standing Committee, when deliberating the draft amendments, according to the suggestions of the deputies and also the feedback from different delegations, we responded actively to the explanations of Mr. Wang Chen on constitutional amendments. In the latter part of his explanations, he mentioned one point. At the third plenary session of the 19th CPC Central Committee, we adopted a plan to deepen the reform of the national institutions, that is, changing the MPC Law Committee into the MPC Constitution and Law Committee. So the constitutional amendments were done strictly based on the law, and it is not done very lightly. It represents a response to the suggestions and voices of the deputies, and it is considered a very significant step. And it actually demonstrates the spirits of the 19th Party Congress, which raised the suggestions on improving constitutional review and respecting the authority of the Constitution. And it is beneficial to improving the MPC Law Committee. In Item 1 of Article 70 of the Constitution, there are also relevant provisions. This will also reinforce and promote the implementation and supervision of the constitutional work. So based on discussions and strict legal procedures, the Secretariat of the conference and the Presidium of the two sessions listened to different rounds of reports. That's why the draft amendments were revised, and this is a highly significant step. In terms of constitutional supervision, I would like to make the following briefings. According to the provisions of the Constitution, the National People's Congress is responsible for revising the Constitution. That's what we did exactly today. It will also be responsible for the implementation and execution of the Constitution. The MPC Standing Committee, which is quite different from the MPC itself, is responsible for interpreting the Constitution. It is also responsible for supervising the implementation and execution of the Constitution. So these are two very important organs. In revising Item 1 of Article 70 of the Constitution, we changed MPC Law Committee into the Constitution and Law Committee of the National People's Congress. So, at the specialized committee of the MPC level, for the first time, we have the Constitution Committee.
加强了呢这个全国人大在宪法方面的工作。
It reinforces the work of the NPC in the area of the Constitution.
刚才讲到就是有监督
Constitutional work involves supervision, interpretation,
实施宪法，推动实施宪法。
implementation and execution of the Constitution, and we have established a whole set of legal systems based on the constitutional work, and the important aim is to promote the implementation, supervision, and interpretation of the Constitution, including constitutional review, as you mentioned in your question. This is a new requirement of the 19th Party Congress. We also had provisions regarding the publicity of the Constitution. So every part of the constitutional work is covered and reinforced through this revision.
所以，这次呢，这个动了一下宪法。
So that's why we made some minor modifications to Article 70,
那么具体做法呢
which has not been revised for a long
换届
time.
的，就是像。 这一次13届全国人大一次会议
At the first session of the 13th National People's Congress, when there is a succession of the new deputies,
设立全国人大专门委员会的决定
we would have some decisions regarding the establishment of specialized committees. And there are also provisions regarding other specialized committees, but this time around you raised the Constitutional Committee, and by doing so we try to improve the organization and setup of specialized committees in order to reinforce rule of law, legal work, and also relevant constitutional work. Thank you.
由于时间关系，再回答一个问题。
There's one more question. Well, that's the press conference from the Legislative Affairs Commission, from the NPC Standing Committee, and Mr. Shen Chunyao, the chairman of the Legislative Affairs Commission of the NPC Standing Committee, and also Deputy Secretary Ms. Zheng Shuna, answered some questions from the journalist on the amendment of the Constitution itself. And now for some insights, we're now joined by our own commentator, Robert Lawrence Kuhn. Dr. Kuhn, so you've been listening to the press conference from the NPC's Legislative Affairs Commission. What do you make of the exchange between the legislators and the press about the amendment of the Constitution?
It's been an issue that